Hello and welcome everyone to our final lesson on the indices, the topic indices and our index laws. This one here is sort of the culmination of everything that we've covered. So we'll learn in this lesson to actually combine all four of the index laws into one question. These questions can get a little bit tricky, but again, you can sort of break it up and just do it one step at a time. They're generally okay. It's kind of like having, two or three separate questions all combined into one, and you sort of go through one step at a time. Now, as far as what we plan on doing, so this week is just us finishing off the rest of the content. Our topic tests won't be until the start of next week, right? So you won't have any topic tests to do after this lesson. This week is really just about learning the content, practicing. There'll be some extra, textbook exercises. There'll be an Education Perfect lesson you can have a go at if you prefer that over the textbook. It really will be up to you. I won't do any further delays. This lesson will be a relatively short one because there's actually no new content for us to do. There won't be anything new. We've already learned how to do all the index laws. So what is this lesson going to look like exactly? We're going to do a super quick recap on all four of the index laws. After that, we'll get straight into the main part of this lesson, which is us combining these four index laws all together. All right, you won't need to copy this into your books. This is just a quick recap for you guys. I've got 4 questions. Each question belongs to a different index law. And so there's no combining yet, right? Each one of these questions is a separate index law question. The first question is index law number 1. This is the multiplying one. And remember, the index law 1, right? When multiplying, you keep the base the same. And then you add the 2 powers. Then go on and look at the b's. B squared times b to the 6. Keep the base the same. Add the 2 powers. That is index law number 1. It doesn't matter how many different letters, C, D, it's that same process. Base stays the same, you add the powers. All right, going down to the second question. Here we have a division one, right? Normally it's written like this, but sometimes division can be written as a fraction. It makes no difference to us. We still do it the same way. The only slight annoyance for us with this question is 6 divided by 8. We've got these ordinary numbers here that we just deal with normally. 6 divided by 8. Unfortunately, this isn't a whole number. If you type into your calculator, you might get it as a decimal, 0.75. Or, if you enjoy simplifying, keeping things as fractions, it could also be written as 3/4. You actually have a choice. You could write it as either way. For those that prefer the decimals, 6 divided by 8 is 0.75. So we just divide the normal numbers like normal. When you get to the ends, they have powers above them, and this is where we use index law number 2. Index law number 2, when dividing, keep the base the same, but instead of adding the powers, now you minus them, right? So when dividing, the powers minus. So yeah, you could leave your answer as 0.75, n to the power of 8. Alternatively, if you're a fan of the fractions, you could have had 3/4 with an n to the 8 at the top, or funnily enough, you could have also wrote it with the n to the 8 off to the side. Any one of these 3 answers is mathematically 100% correct. It doesn't matter which one you do, they're all equally correct, okay? So that was the second one. Third index law, this is the power of a power. Look up over here, you've got, well, firstly, we just have an ordinary 2, right? No power of a power there, that's just an ordinary 2 that's been cubed. 2 cubed, right? 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Now when you get to dealing with a p, this is where you've got the power of a power. Keep the base the same, multiply the two powers, and you've got your answer. That's question 3. And final question. This was the new one we learnt just in the last lesson, the zero index, the easiest of them all. Any number that's to the power of 0 is just equal to 1, right? So any number that has a 0 as the index will just become a 1. So in this case, you've got 5. Notice that's an ordinary 5. Nothing is happening to it. There's no zeros, above it or anything like that. It's just 5. And it's been multiplied by 2x to the power of 0. Notice the 2x has been taken to the power of 0. So that whole thing just becomes a 1. In other words, you got 5 times 1. Right, so that's the answer to the final one there. All right, so now we've seen the 4 index laws in isolation. With this one here, we're just going to get straight into it. There's no need for notes or any explanations. There's nothing actually new specifically for this lesson. It's just a combination of things you've already learnt. So let's get straight into our examples. So this first one's combining index law 1 and 2 together. And again, instead of trying to do them all at the same time and getting overwhelmed, your best bet is just to do one at a time, right? Treat this as just 2 separate simple questions. So the first step, if we look at the top, you've got n cubed times n to the power of 5. That's just index law number 1, which we know, keep the base the same, add the powers. So you get n to the 8 there. Notice I've got this divided by n squared on the bottom. I've done nothing with that yet, right? Just one step at a time. We used index law number 1 to simplify the top. Now we're going to go ahead and resolve this division, right? So now this is actually index law number 2. So when simplifying index law number 2, we know, right, when dividing, keep the base the same and you minus the powers. This here is the correct answer, n to the 6. It was just like 2 questions put into the one question. There was an index law 1 and then there was an index law 2 question, right? And just do each one individually, keep it, just relaxed and stress-free, and you'll get the correct answer. All right, example number 2, let's go. We can see, hey, index law number 3, this is the power of a power here, right? So power of a power, keep the base the same, multiply the 2 powers, you get a to the 21. It's been divided by a, right? I'm not even looking at that divided by a yet. Just do one thing at a time. Now that we've done that, we can see, we've got index law number 2. So this question was index law 3 and index law 2 combined. And we know when dividing, keep the base the same, minus the powers. And that there is your correct answer. All right, so they're the first 2 examples. If you haven't yet, you probably know from the previous lessons, you will need to pause the video. Make sure you get the heading and these first 2 examples copied into your book. Once that's done, unpause the video and we'll finish off the last of our examples. All right, so hopefully we're good with the first 2. Let's move on to our last 2 examples. So again, they're looking more complicated, but as long as we break it up and just do, one step at a time, we'll find it may take longer because there's more steps, but they won't necessarily be harder. Each step should be just as easy as what they've always been throughout the topic. So this one here, I'm going to look at the top first. We have 10pq cubed, all to the power of 2. So that 10, is that 10 a power or just a normal number? Right, so hopefully you think it was just a normal 10. So we have 10 that's been, squared. So we're just going to resolve that like we always have. What is 10 squared? So we've got 100. Now here we've got the P and the Q. These guys, this is where we've got the power of a power. So we are dealing with index law number 3 here. But remember, nice and easy. Keep the base the same. Multiply the 2 powers. keep the base the same, multiply the two powers. All right, so we've done with the top. Notice there's absolutely nothing I'm doing with the bottom yet. You know, you may be tempted to, oh, there's a p to the 0. That's just going to become a 1. You know, save that for the next step. All right, now on to the next part. Okay, so we've used index law number 3 on the top. Now we've got ourselves a division. This is just index law number 2. All right, so we've got this 100 divided by 25. They're not powers, they're just ordinary numbers. So we'll solve them just like normal. What is 100 divided by 25? Right, so you know, you get 4. If you're really bad at, you know, your times tables, just use your calculator, you're allowed. We get 4 there. Now let's move on. P squared divided by p to the 0. Remember when dividing, that's index law number 2. You keep the base the same minus the powers. And the q, there's actually no q's on the bottom to cancel with. It just stays there. That's our final answer. 4 p squared q to the 6. Note, for those people that wanted to just revert because, you know, they're really good with their index law number 4, you know, hey, p to the 0 is just a 1. So you could kind of ignore that. Notice you'd still get the correct answer. So whether you dealt with that p to the 0 as an index law number 2 or you used index law number 4, it actually won't make a difference. You'll still end up with the same correct answer anyway. And final example. All right, so I've got like power of a power over here. Let's be honest, index law number 3. There's a times, index law number 1. I see a y to the 0, index law number 4. And this whole thing is a divide. This one here, we're actually combining all 4 index laws together. I don't know if I've got enough space. What I do know is, as long as I do each step separately, it shouldn't get too hard. I just may have quite a few steps to do. But anyway, let's look at the first step. Me personally, I would probably just sort out the y to the 0, right? Just rewrite that as the number 1. And I'm actually going to, you know, also do index law number 3 here, the power of a power. So what do we have? On the top, we have x to the 4 times. Okay, what's this going to become? Remember power of a power. Base stays the same, multiply the 2 powers. Base stays the same, multiply the 2 powers. Okay, you just end up with that. And on the bottom, the y to the 0 just becomes a 1. So you got like 1 lot of x to the 4. There it is. Okay, so that's covered. Next step, I'm just going to do index law number 1 now. Right, I'm going to deal with this multiplication that's on top. So when multiplying, we know the x's here is what I'm looking at. Right, so what we have is the x to the 4 times x to the 6 that are on top. So when multiplying, base stays the same. You add the 2 powers together. And the y to the 6 is just sort of stuck sitting by himself. And that's it. So we've done the multiplication. Final step is the division. So just index law number 2. When dividing, right, what do? We keep the base the same and we minus the powers. 10 minus 4 gives you a 6. And you got the y to the 6. And that there is the final answer. So as long as you do it just in steps, keep things relaxed. Sometimes the order you do it in, you know, it won't even make a difference, right? You know, if you want to do the division first and then the multiplication, you're still going to get the same thing. As an example, I know some people, you know, looking at this step right here, some people may have decided to like, you know, do the division and cancel those 2 things straight away, actually kind of shortcutting you and getting you straight to the final answer. You know, that would have been pretty cool. And if I'd really been looking carefully, which, you know, honest truth, I was not, I was just sort of on automatic pilot there. Again, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, it doesn't matter even so much about the order. Times in dividing, order of operations, as long as you don't make a mistake, the order won't really be all that important here. Anyway, hopefully this made sense. These are our examples. So there's 4 of them in total. Pause the video if you need to. Make sure you've got those 4 examples in. And as always, I've got some questions for you guys to practice yourselves at the end. Okay, you guys know what to do. Pause the video, copy in the questions, and have a go at answering each one to the best of your ability. The first 4 are fairly relaxed, right? Nothing too crazy. Of course, I've got another 4 questions afterwards that do definitely step up in difficulty. With that being said, don't stress, just try your best. So pause the video, unpause the video once you've answered these first 4 questions to the best of your ability. All right, so hopefully you've got answers for this first one. You've got index law number 1, adding, so you'd end up with a to the 9 divided by a squared. And then using index law number 2, you should have got a to the 7 as your final answer for the first one. The second one, I've got the division first this time. So using index law number 2, you should have ended up with an m to the 9 times m to the 10. Index law number 1, we add the powers. M to the 19 was the final answer for question 2. The third one, we're combining index law number 3 with index law number 2. And you should have ended up with k to the 13. And for question number 4, here we go. Index law number 3, index law 4. And in this case, you would end up with just n to the 30. There's actually a couple different ways you could have done question 4. It does not matter. If you've done it correct, you should have ended up with n to the 30 as your final answer. All right, there's the first 4 done. Hopefully you had some success with them. If you got, more than one of those questions wrong, you might want to go back and have a quick look at the examples again, or look through and really make sure you understand what's happening with these first 4 before you have a look at these 4. All right, pause the video, copy the questions into your books, and have a go at answering. Once you have answers for each, even if you think it's wrong, just try your best. You know what to do. Unpause the video and I'll give you answers. Okay, so for question number 5, I'd be starting off with index law 3. 3 squared, that's a 9p to the 12 times 2p to the 3. And now it's just index law number 1. 9 times 2 is 18. And when multiplying, keep the base the same, add the powers, you end up with p to the 15 at the end of it. Question 6, same sort of thing. 3 squared is 9, p to the 12. This time, though, I'm getting you to divide by 9p cubed. 9 divided by 9 is 1, which I'm not even going to bother writing, right? You can, you don't have to. And she's stuck with p to the 12 divided by p to the 3. Keep the base the same. Take away the powers. Again, if you had the 1 there, it's still correct. It's just not necessary. All right, question 7. I'm going to use index law number 1. When multiplying, add the powers. And again, you could either treat this as index law 2 or 4 here. If you're going to treat it as index law number 2, just keep that as an n to the 0. And then index law number 2 says, hey, when dividing, you minus 8, take away 0, gives you 8. That's the correct answer, no matter which way you do it. The other alternative, of course, was to have n to the 8 all over 1. And of course, any number divided by 1 doesn't change. You should have ended up with n to the 8 either way. And the final question, again, if you've been getting these correct so far, you're doing fantastic. This one here, I guess the trickiest part actually wasn't even the powers. It's just, these numbers. Minus 3 times 4, right? Ordinary minus 3 times an ordinary 4 gives you 3 4s are 12 with a minus out the front. Now on to multiplying these powers, right? Now we're dealing with index law 1. A squared times a squared gives you a to the 4, and you've got a b there. And what is on the bottom? You've got this minus 6ab. So 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 negatives make a plus. So you got positive 2. And now when dividing, you minus the powers. So 4 take away 1 is 3. 1 take away 1 is 0. So you could write this as b to the 0. Or you could have, b to the 0 is actually a 1, right? Some people might have even looked at that and cancelled the b's, and that's totally cool as well. Again, giving you just 2a cubed. And in actual fact, I would say, because we've already covered index law number 4, you probably really shouldn't, leave the b to the 0 there. You really should be simplifying that down to just a 1. So 2a cubed. So that is actually it for the indices topic. So there was writing out expressions in expanded form, writing them in index form, knowing what a power or an index is, and then understanding what the base is, right? The big part of the number. And then we had the 4 index laws, right? So when multiplying, the powers add. When dividing, the powers minus. Power of a power, that's when the 2 powers multiply. And of course, the 0 index. Any number to the power of 0 becomes a 1. And then here we saw in this lesson, the most challenging part of the topic when you're combining the index laws all together into one question. Anyway, if you do have any questions, please let me know. I hope you've enjoyed the topic. It was a short one. And we did see some harder questions towards the end, but the majority of the topic is very basic. And that's what you're going to find with our topic tests at the start of next week. It will be a very basic. The majority of the questions are very simple. There's a couple harder questions at the end, similar to what we've done in this lesson. But yeah, that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed the topic. If you do have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you for the next week. Okay, bye.